Ladies and gentlemen, to the August 7th, 2018 meeting of the Downers Grove Village Council, it is my privilege and honor to call this meeting to order. If you have not already done so, there are copies of our agenda on shelves on either side of the room. Please feel free to pick one up and you can follow along with tonight's proceedings. There will be multiple opportunities for public comment tonight, both with respect to items that are on our agenda, as well as a segment which is under item 4 tonight, which is reserved for public comments of a general nature. At that point in time, if any members of the audience have any questions or comments of a general nature, we would welcome you to the podium, tell us who you are, and we would love to hear from you at that point in time. But first, it is our proud custom to begin our meetings by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. So I would ask everyone present to please rise and join us in reciting the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Outstanding, thank you. And now, I would like to ask our fine village clerk, April Holden, to please call the roll.
Commissioner Wallace? Here. Commissioner Earl?
Here.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Here.
Commissioner White?
Here.
Commissioner Jose?
Here.
Commissioner Barnett?
Here.
Mayor Tully?
Here, thank you very much. And I was commenting earlier on how everyone at 801 Burlington seems so upbeat, happy, relaxed, stress-free, and then it dawned upon me it's because you haven't seen the village council here in 3 or 4 weeks. That has to be the reason. So it's good to have everyone back in the same room. Next item pertains to minutes of prior council meetings. We have one set of minutes to review and approve tonight. Those are the minutes from our regular council meeting of July 17th, 2018. See how long it's been? If there are no questions, comments, or concerns, or changes to those minutes, I would ask for a motion to approve, please.
Martello, I move the council approve the meeting minutes from July 17, 2018 as presented.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Those minutes are approved. And just like that, we are at item 4, which is earlier advertised, pertains to public comments of a general nature. If there are any questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to any items that are not on tonight's agenda, please come to the podium. Tell us who you are. We welcome hearing from you. Please don't all rush at once. No questions or comments? All right, then. We'll move on to item 5, which is our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Martello, I move that council approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to any items on tonight's consent agenda? Questions, comments, concerns from any members of the village council? Hearing none, may I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. The consent agenda passes unanimously. That brings us to item 6, which is our active agenda. Not so active tonight. We have no items on tonight's active agenda, so we'll go right to item 7, which is our first reading of our workshop agenda. This is an opportunity for items to be presented for discussion purposes only. No final action will be taken on any of these items tonight. Typically what we do is ask for our fine village staff to present the items. The village council members will have an opportunity to ask questions, and then we'll open it up to the audience for any questions before coming back to the council. So with that, I will turn things over to our village manager, Dave Fieldman. Good evening, sir, for the path forward. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for the introduction, Mayor. There are 4 items on tonight's first reading agenda. The first 2 items will be presented by our Community Development Director, Shane Popovich.
Good evening, Mr. Popovich. How are you?
I'm good, Mayor. It's nice to see you again, and council members as well.
Very nice to see you. You look like you look younger for some reason. I don't know why.
Must be the Grecian.
Whatever you're doing, it's working. Diet
Thank you, Mayor.
looks good on you.
Thank you for the kind words. So tonight, the first item is a historic landmark at 844 Maple Avenue. The property is located just southeast of downtown. It's on the north side of Maple here, just a little bit northeast of the intersection of Lyman and Maple Avenue. The house shown here is a great example of a gable L home. It's got a vertical upright portion here in the middle with a dominant gable front. It does have 2 wings, one on either side there. The east wing on the right is 1 story, and the west wing is about 1.5 stories there. Original features on the building include wood double-hung windows, wood clapboard siding, window trim, and then hood molding around the windows as well. The village's 2013 historic building survey found that this property was a significant property. It does meet the ADRB found and met the landmark criteria. It was built in 1876, so definitely over 50 years old, and it's a good example of a gable L. If approved, this would be number 24 on the list. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer those for you at this time.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Stan. Any questions or comments from members of the Village Council?
Thank you for the number.
You're welcome.
I'm thinking what we ought to do is, you know how in the baseball stadiums, for certain pitchers, they'll have the Ks lined up? We ought to have something, a number of historic structures, Hs or something like that.
I'll work on a graphic.
You think I'm kidding. We should have something that indicates, well, yeah, the number's great, but
It wouldn't be that hard to do a large plaque with the addresses.
see, there you go. See, it wasn't such a crazy idea. Anyway, that's for another time. Any questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to this item? Again, don't rush the stage. Please, safety first. Good evening, welcome.
Good evening. Amy Gaston, 5320 Benson Avenue. I just want to thank the homeowner for making the decision to landmark this home. It's a great example of an upright and wing home, and not only that, it's probably one of the oldest homes in the village that retains so much of its original details and form. So I think it's a great home to protect. And again, I want to thank the homeowner. So I fully support this application. Thanks.
Thank you, appreciate you sharing that. Good evening, welcome.
Hi, I'm Rich Cullivaney, 6825 Camden. I also stand in support of this landmark nomination. I think it's a wonderful example and, reminding you and the public that it is all about lining up against the architectural standards that they're. Also, one thing I'd like to remind the people is the best way to protect historic properties from tear down is to landmark them. And the next best way is just don't sell them to developers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening, welcome.
Hi, Charlotte Holton, 5226 Carpenter Street, and I support this landmark application. I did the research on it, and it was really wonderful working with Selma, the homeowner, and we learned a lot of interesting things, and I do think it is probably one of the oldest structures that maintains most of the original aspects of the home, inside and out. Not that the inside counts, but it's a very great example of that right wing and target wall or whatever. So anyway, I support this. Thank you very much.
Great, well, thank you for sharing that. Good evening, welcome.
Myra Holton, 5226 Carpenter Street. I too support the landmarking of this house. I like it especially because of the very few changes that have been made to it since it was built a long time ago. The other thing I want to know is, how are we going to celebrate number 25 when it comes next time?
You stole my thunder. You stole my thunder. When we get to 25, we got to do something. It's like the grocery store when you're 1,000th customer. We have to do something special. But now it's out there for everyone to know about. And 185 comes to mind too. Something with the 105th, 85th anniversary of the village, and 25. We'll figure something out here. I think that would be an excellent idea. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for stealing my thunder. Other questions or comments from members of the audience on this item? You realize what's happening here now is that there's only 3 people left in the audience who haven't spoken, so you're going to have to come up and say something at some point in time. Good evening, welcome.
Good evening, I'm Selma Moberg, 844 Maple Avenue, the owner of the historic landmark house. I just want to say thank you to everybody for all their help. I specifically did this so the house would not be torn down because of builders. So I will hope to sell in the spring. I cannot afford to live in Downers Grove anymore. So my main concern was to save the home. So thank you so very much, and thank you to everybody that helped me.
Well, thank you, and God bless you for doing that and for sharing that story, because that was one of the main objectives behind the Historic Preservation Ordinance, so that would be available for homeowners like yourself to do. So even if they ended up moving on for whatever reason life took them, that we wouldn't put in jeopardy treasures that our community not only can enjoy now, but for many future generations. So thank you very much on behalf of myself and the entire Village Council. We greatly appreciate it. And we'll figure out something new for number 25, but every number is special. So yay 24. Other questions or comments from members of the audience? Any final questions or comments from members of the Village Council? All right. Next item, please. Thank you.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. The next item is an alley vacation at 509, 523 Gears, and 4732 Douglas Road. Property is just a little bit northeast of downtown Downers Grove here. You can see here it's at the southeast corner of Gears and Douglas. You can see the three properties that are petitioning for the alley vacation. The alley is here in the middle of the three properties. It's a 14-foot wide alley, shown here in green. And what's going to happen is the alley will be split amongst the three property owners, as shown here on the map. So that's what the plan is. The Plan Commission found that the alley was compatible, vacation was compatible with the comprehensive plan and with the village council policy as noted on screen. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer those for you at this time.
Thank you, Stan. So what number alley vacation is this?
I did not come prepared, but I can find that out for you.
Just kidding. Questions from the council? The only thing I'll mention is I remember when these alley vacations or other vacations were not quite as straightforward as they are now. So this is really a testament to the policy that was developed many years ago by prior councils that make this, I think, much easier and better for all involved, including the neighbors around these areas. I mean, I remember some of these got to be rather interesting back in the day. So it's a proof positive that a good policy can do well. Questions or comments from members of the audience? All right, there's only two left.
My name is
Good evening, welcome.
Good evening. So my name is Chris Nelson. I live at 509 Gears. I definitely want this to happen. I am very pro for this. That's it.
Terrific.
Somebody better come in and say.
We're going to call this Positive Tuesday at this rate.
All three of us are in agreement, so it was an easy one.
Well, yes, and that's always obviously great to hear. And again, I think that's part of an outcome of the policy, which encouraged reaching out and participation by everyone who would be proximate to the proposed vacation. So thank you for coming down and sharing that. Any other questions or comments from members of the audience? Final questions or comments from members of the council? All right, hearing none. Next item, please.
Thank you, Mayor. The next two items, the final two items in the first reading agenda will be presented by our Public Works Director, Nan Newland.
Good evening, Ms. Newland.
Mayor and Council.
Nothing going on with Public Works these days, is there? I hear there's a shortage on orange cones.
We have a little bit of work going on in town, I understand, and we sincerely appreciate everyone's patience. I know it can be a frustrating time of year, but we're accomplishing a lot of great projects, and they will be wrapped up in the near future.
And it's always appreciated when the work is done.
Thank you. Item C is adoption of traffic control amendments, including neighborhood traffic number 6. You may remember, this is area number 6. We have completed 5 neighborhood studies so far, dating back probably about 8 years so far. What we do is we look at a neighborhood on a comprehensive basis, look at the way traffic moves within the neighborhood, try to resolve uncontrolled intersections so that there's traffic control. Motorists understand who has the right of way at every intersection. We look at areas where pedestrians are trying to cross. We try to address cut-through traffic, try to keep traffic on the appropriate streets, and take a look at, like I said, on a neighborhood basis. Study number 6 is the area north of Ogden, east of Highland, all the way to the village limits, up to 39th Street. So it includes a number of village amenities, including Good Samaritan Hospital to the north, a couple of neighborhood parks, as well as commercial areas and a grade school. So there's quite a bit of pedestrian activity in this neighborhood. What we did was we did some very comprehensive traffic analysis in this neighborhood. We took traffic counts, pedestrian counts, peak hour counts on some of the major intersections, and took a look at what the existing traffic control was. We had a number of meetings with the neighborhood, including a meeting with TAP in July, and have a series of recommendations, including the first is the phase 1 is all the traffic control items, which are shown on this exhibit, are in the report, and are listed in detail on the council packet, as well as enhancing crosswalks at some of the significant pedestrian crossings by schools and parks. Residents were in favor of these items. We did go ahead in early under the manager's approval and put in a couple of significant stop signs at the parks where we noticed a very high number of pedestrians for a limited time until we could get the whole package approved. and that has been very favorably received by the neighborhood. What we would like to do is get approval for this item and have all this traffic control in place before the start of school in August. Like I said, this is really a balance of motorists' needs to travel as well as the desires of residents to have safe passage of cars on their streets and have the volumes and the speeds be reasonable for the neighborhood and for the streets involved. So while on a collector street you won't see as many stop signs, and that's where we're trying to encourage traffic to be on the wider streets with more continuity, and on the neighborhood streets, in most cases where there's a grid system, you'll see a stop sign every 2 blocks. Kind of, in a perfect world, if everything was a grid, it'd be kind of a basket weave of alternating stop signs every 2 blocks. And really, the main cause is just a sign right away, so people know whose turn it is. And there isn't a confusion like on a yield sign or an uncontrolled intersection where a young driver might not understand who has the right of way at those intersections. The Transportation Parking Commission approved this report on a unanimous vote, and this is also a list of the crosswalks we'll be enhancing as well at their July meeting, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Terrific, thank you. Questions or comments from members of the council? Commissioner Earl.
Yes, I was looking, if you want something to put you to sleep, read this 120-something pages late at night. But towards the end of it, there were some really interesting maps that showed the speed count, which in some places where I expected it to be higher, like along the park on Cumnor, it was actually lower than I expected it to be, which is great, which means people are paying attention to some of the signs we're putting up. What I did have a question is my understanding, I wasn't sure, but I believe my understanding was Fairview is a county road, not a city road, because there were some suggestions for Fairview, and I wasn't sure where we would stand with those.
We would have to work with the county to implement those. Those are seen as long-term improvements and would be done with more regional projects.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or comments from members? Commissioner Waldeck, good evening.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. I guess Dave gave you a heads up. You responded to some of my concerns very well. For the public purpose, when we do the traffic changes, provisions, safety first, naturally. It's assumed that residents don't particularly like cars going in front of their house other than theirs, and somebody's always speeding, and so there's been petitions that go to parking and traffic, and it just seems that I'm concerned. What I don't want to do is over control traffic. Traffic's like water, and it's going to take the path of least resistance. And just as long as we're aware that that safety comes first, that we're doing things for the right reasons, and we aren't reacting to closing streets and making one-ways and various things that actually force traffic into another neighborhood, creating problems somewhere else. So I just wanted to make that concern. I wanted to voice that concern. I don't think that's the case here, and you explained the reasons why we do all the signage. But I just want everybody to be aware that we have an obligation for safety and pedestrians, but we also have an obligation to make sure the traffic moves. And you answered quite well, but I just thought I'd voice that concern. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or concerns from members of the council? Questions or comments from members of the audience? Hearing none. Thank you for the presentation. Next item, please.
The next item is a motion request to award a contract for Drendel Road and Cross Street drainage, roadway, and sidewalk improvements to A-Lamp Concrete Contractors of Schaumburg in the amount of $1,715,641.20. So this project is one of our, we call it a SPA project from the 2014 Stormwater Project Analysis Report. As you may remember, after the 2013 flood event, we commissioned a report, and it came back with a series of recommended study projects. You'll see Project 7 here is circled in the northwest portion of the village. This project was identified because there was structural flooding occurred during that event. It's basically a bowl with an outlet. It's shown here in the blue is the drainage area on Drendel, south of Indianapolis. It is just north of the Belmont Prairie. And as I said, it's a bowl. It has no way for the water to get out. So in these even minor storm events, we get flooding of the street, which makes the street impassable. And to completely drain it, we have to go out and pump the street. We looked at a number of alternatives. The report suggested possibly some property acquisition, looking at draining it to the south. Because of the status of the Belmont Prairie and the high quality of that area, we are not allowed to go in and grade that area. So this project is proposing to install a storm sewer south on Drendel, and using directional boring, we will be boring a pipe along the undeveloped Prairie Avenue right-of-way north of the Belmont Prairie, and then continuing that down south on Cross Street. If you can envision that S-curve there, that's where the project will be occurring. So the project will include, like I said, it'll be road improvements, drainage improvements, and sidewalk improvements, all in this area. On Drendel, south of Indianapolis, the pipe will be along Prairie, and then continue the road, sidewalk, and drainage improvements south on Cross Street. The work will combine with a previously approved contract that came to you a couple months ago and was just completed of sidewalk on Drendel from this point north to Ogden, and on Cross from the point where it'll end here down to Burlington. So it'll be a continuous improvement there once this project's completed. And the ALAMP was the low bidder. We did receive 5 bids. They've completed a number of projects for us, very similar in scope to this project, and they're also completing a number of projects currently for us and have done a good job, and we are recommending approval of this contract to ALAMP, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you very much for the presentation of the item. Any questions or comments from members of the Village Council? Questions or comments from members of the audience? Hearing none, thank you very much.
First reading, Mayor, thank you.
All right, that means we turn the page and we go to item 8, which is the mayor's report. I just have one thing I want to point out tonight. That is, there is a local organization here in Downers Grove that is conducting a school supplies drive this weekend on August 11th from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. in the Downers Grove North High parking lot. The goal of the drive is to collect school supplies, which will be donated to underfunded schools in the Chicago metropolitan area. So if you have extra school supplies that you would like to donate, I would encourage you to stop by on the 11th from 3 to 7, the Downers Grove North parking lot here in Downers Grove, and it's a group here in Downers Grove that's organizing the drive. That's all I have for my report, so we'll go right to item 9, back to the Village Manager, Dave Fieldman.
Thank you, Mayor Tully. We do have one report tonight. Our Finance Director, Judy Butney, will provide a financial report for the second quarter of this year, focusing on the general fund.
Awesome. Do we have money?
We do.
Awesome.
We do. Good evening, Mayor and Council. As Dave said, we've got our second quarter report. We'll start with the revenues. The FY18 budget had a total of 47.37 budgeted, and so far through the end of the second quarter, we would have expected our revenues to be at 25.04 million, and we're actually at 25.1 million, which is favorable to the budget by $60,000. Most of the revenues are at budgeted levels. The revenues over budget include sales taxes, $100,000, food and beverage, $88,000, and the under budget is the telecommunications revenue at $110,000. We're very excited to see our new revenue food and beverage tax performing so well. The expenses, 47.37 total for the budget. We would have expected to be at 22.98 million. And we are actually at 22.77, which brings us under budget by about 210,000, and that variance is due primarily to open positions. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Judy. Questions or comments from members of the council? Quick question I had with respect to the very favorable report on expenses. Thank you very much for that, by the way. And if you can't comment on this point in time, then that's fine. But do we expect that to continue or to change once positions are filled?
We expect this to continue. We're making structural and operational changes in many departments, and you will see that reflected in the FY19 budget when it's published in the last week of September.
All right, so I'm getting ahead of myself, and this is continuing a trend of leanness that we've been experiencing for a number of years now.
That's correct.
All right, thank you for that. Any other questions from the council? Questions or comments from members of the audience? Very good. Thank you, Ms. Budney.
Thank you. That's our report center.
All right, then our next guest is our village attorney, Enzo Petrarca. Good evening, Ms. Petrarca.
Good evening, Mayor. Only two items to present this evening. The first is an ordinance vacating a portion of a public alley adjacent to and between 4732 Douglas and 509 and 523 Pierce Avenue, and an ordinance amending certain traffic provisions. Both will be on next week's active agenda.
Terrific. Thank you very much. That brings us to item 11, which is relegated for reports from village council members. This is an opportunity for members of the village council to either report out on goings-on or other items of interest in the community that they want to share with those here or watching from home, or also an opportunity to report out in their role as liaisons to other public bodies. So I will start to my far right tonight with Commissioner Jose. Good evening. I like the pocket scarf.
Good evening, Mayor. Thank you. I have no report.
No report, even better. Commissioner Waldeck.
I'll continue that. No report.
All right. Commissioner Wallace.
Thank you, Mayor. The Education Foundation of Downers Grove District 58 is holding their Oktoberfest September 14th and 15th. Friday, they are open from 3 to 11 p.m. and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. with a kids zone open Saturday from noon to 7. There's going to be face painting, a dunk tank, and authentic Oktoberfest food and beverage. So please come out and support the Education Foundation of District 58. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Barnett, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. I have no report.
Very good. Commissioner Earl.
No report, Mayor.
And finally, Commissioner White.
No report.
And I have no further report. So this is typically the point in the meeting where I ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Oh, wait a minute. We need a second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much for being here. We are adjourned. Good night. We'll see you next week.